In a quiet black Baptist church in Montgomery, Alabama, the beloved choir director, Mr. Elijah Gray, is known for his Sunday suits, baritone voice, and spiritual warmth. But when a maintenance crew uncovers a rusted pistol hidden inside the church's old pipe organ during renovations, it triggers a reopened cold case from 1996, the unsolved murder of a local activist. The new pastor, young, ambitious, and curious, starts asking questions. A suspicious insurance policy, a missing sermon tape, a youth who saw something he was told to forget. As the layers peel back, secrets unravel about the choir, the church elders, and the past life Elijah tried to bury beneath gospel harmonies. Before we expose the secrets buried in this case, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because in this world of lies, betrayal, and missing files, one click might be your only way to the truth. Now, let's begin. The note was barely legible, scrawled in fading ink on crinkled paper stuck behind a cluster of silent organ pipes. Nobody had touched the thing in years. The Hammond B3 had gone out of use when the church moved to digital speakers. But today, it was being dismantled for donation. And someone, God knows, who had once decided that the hollow inside was a good place to hide something meant never to be found. At first, Brother Quan didn't think much of it. The organ was too old, smelled like dust and varnish, and groaned every time he pried open another panel. He'd volunteered to help strip it for parts during the church's renovation week. He hadn't expected the envelope. Inside was a small pistol, wrapped in cloth, corroded with time, a .32 caliber Colt. Alongside it, wedged tight, was a torn choir program from August 1996 with two names underlined in red. One of them was Elijah Gray. Quan stood there, arms trembling, the afternoon sun slicing through the stained glass windows onto the polished sanctuary floor. The choir loft was quiet. Too quiet. Outside, the sounds of kids playing basketball in the church lot seemed a world away. He didn't touch the gun again, just backed away and called the new pastor. 1 week earlier, Mount Mercy Missionary Baptist Church, Montgomery, Alabama. The new pastor, Reverend Micah Drummond, had only been in the pulpit 6 months. 32, Morehouse grad, fresh-pressed suits and sermons sharp as a tack. Some of the elders said he was too modern, too young, but the younger folks packed the pews. And he listened when people talked, especially the quiet ones. On his first day, he'd walked into the sanctuary and seen Elijah Gray sitting at the piano, eyes closed, head bowed. The man played hymns like he was carrying centuries of grief through his fingers. Elijah didn't speak much, didn't need to. Just nodded once, gave a half smile, and returned to his music. People loved Mr. Elijah. The choir? He built it? The kids? He mentored them. The mothers of the church? Said he was the last gentleman left in Montgomery. But Micah saw something else. A stillness too still. Like a man holding something so tight, it hollowed him from the inside out. Present day. The church board met in a hush behind locked doors. Quan, still shaken, recounted what he'd found. The pistol, the program, the underlined name. "Don't be jumping to conclusions," snapped Deacon Riley, the oldest voice in the room. "That man been with us longer than some of y'all been born. You know how many people had keys to this church back then?" "But the program had his name on it," Quan muttered. "And Rev Hayes, too," added Pastor Micah, raising his brow at the second underlined name. "Y'all remember him?" A pause, tight throats, shifty eyes. "He passed in 98, said Sister Lila. "Heart attack. Why?" Micah leaned back, arms crossed. "Because the date on that program? That's 2 weeks before Terrence Gilmore went missing." The room fell silent. 1996 flashback. Terrence Gilmore was a local activist, sharp-tongued radical, always in someone's business. He'd led a protest against the church's dealings with a shady real estate deal involving a former mayor. Rumor was he had proof that the land sale had been dirty. He'd told everyone he had tapes, said he'd show them on Sunday. But he never made it to church. His car was found burned out in a field off Highway 80. No body, no case, no closure. Just gone. And Elijah Gray, then just a young music minister, had played the organ the next Sunday like nothing happened. The music was louder than usual. Back to present. Micah called Elijah into his office after the board meeting. The older man entered slowly, a slight limp in his right leg, dressed as always in his charcoal suit with a crimson pocket square. He sat without invitation. "You look like your mama when you frown like that," Elijah said gently, voice smooth as honey. Micah didn't smile. "Brother Elijah, when was the last time someone used the old Hammond?" Elijah blinked slowly. "Lord, I'd say not since Rev Hayes passed. Why? We found something inside. A weapon, and a program from '96, with your name marked." The man didn't flinch, just let out a long breath. "It finally came back up, huh?" Micah stared. "So it's yours?" Elijah looked past him, out the office window at the stained glass reflecting colored light onto the floor, then said quietly, "No, but I knew it was there." Micah's pulse thumped. "You want to explain that?" The choir director leaned forward, voice low. "Not here, not now. But if you really want the truth, come by my house tonight. After choir rehearsal, bring that program. And come alone." Elijah's house sat at the edge of a cul-de-sac shaded by drooping oaks, just off Cloverdale Road, a modest 2-bedroom brick ranch with chip shutters and a porch swing that creaked even when there was no wind. The kind of place that held too many memories in its walls and kept the curtains drawn even on sunny days. Pastor Micah parked under the street lamp and stepped out. The air smelled like cut grass and distant rain. He clutched the crinkled 1996 program in one hand, heart steady but unsure. He hadn't told anyone where he was going. He knocked once. The door opened halfway, the security chain still latched. Elijah's eyes peered through the gap before unlatching the chain with a slow metal clack. He stepped aside and gestured in silence. Inside, the living room was dim and quiet old jazz records stacked neatly, bookshelves lined with hymnals and black theology paperbacks, a family portrait that hadn't been updated since Clinton was president. On the far wall was a framed newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. Local choir wins regional gospel competition. Elijah Gray named Director of the Year. Micah sat on the edge of the couch. Elijah poured 2 glasses of sweet tea, then settled into the recliner with a sigh that sounded like it came from his bones. "I knew this day would come," he said. "I prayed it wouldn't, but prayers ain't always answered how you want." Micah set the program down on the coffee table between them. "Tell me what happened." Elijah stared at the paper. "You know what silence can do, Reverend? It can bury people, protect them too. For a while at least." He sipped the tea, then spoke. "Terence Gilmore was a loud man, but not a liar. He came to me 2 days before he disappeared. Said he had something that'd tear the whole church apart. Told me he was going to bring it to Sunday service. Told me to be ready. Said he wanted me to play 'Soon I Will Be Done with the Troubles of the World' while he walked down the aisle with a cassette player." Micah blinked. "A cassette?" Elijah nodded. "Said he recorded something about Rev Hayes and a city deal that wasn't legal. Said it involved campaign money being funneled through church accounts. I told him not to do it. Told him to wait. Let me talk to Hayes. But he wouldn't wait. No, he never showed that Sunday. And the next day, I got to the church early. Found the organ door ajar. Inside was that pistol, wrapped up, and a manila envelope with the choir program, and nothing else. No tape, just a note that said, Tell the music to stay loud? Micah leaned forward. Why didn't you go to the police? Elijah stared at his hands. Because I didn't know who put it there. Could have been Hayes. Could have been someone else. And back then? A black man with a gun, and no answers didn't get grace. I buried it, told myself maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was just Terrence trying to stir trouble. But you knew better, Micah said quietly. I did, Elijah whispered. But knowing better and proving it? Two different things. The room fell into silence again. Outside, a thundercloud grumbled in the distance. You think Rev Hayes had something to do with Terrence's disappearance? Micah asked. Elijah nodded slowly. That's what I believe. But he ain't the only one. Somebody else helped him clean it up. That tape, somebody took it. And now that gun's come back up, they might come back too. Micah's eyes narrowed. Who else had access to the organ? Elijah didn't answer right away. Then Deacon Riley. He was head trustee back then. Kept the keys. And he hated Terrence. Micah's jaw clenched. Deacon Riley had shut down the idea of calling police the moment the gun was found. I think it's time I talk to him, Micah said. No. Elijah's voice was firm. Not yet. You confront Riley now. He'll bury whatever else he's hiding before you even get back to your car. You need to know more. And I think I can help you find it. Micah looked up. How? Elijah stood, limping toward a locked cabinet near the bookshelf. He pulled out a ring of old keys, found the smallest, and opened it. Inside was a shoebox full of old cassette tapes. He set them on the table. I kept every rehearsal, every service, every sound check I ever did back then, even the one from the day before Terrence was supposed to expose it all. If Terrence was planning something, maybe he slipped up and said something when he thought nobody was listening. Micah leaned forward. You want me to go through them? I want us to go through them. Together, one by one. Elijah reached over, picked out one tape labeled August 16th, 1996, evening rehearsal, and placed it in the dusty cassette player on the bookshelf. The machine clicked. A moment of static. Then the faint sound of organ keys, laughter, a voice. Y'all better sing it like you mean it this Sunday. 'Cause after Terrence drops that bomb, we won't have no choir left anyway. Micah froze. That was Terrence's voice. Elijah turned to him, eyes solemn. Told you. He wasn't bluffing. Micah whispered. That tape alone could be enough to reopen the case. Elijah gave a nod. If the right person hears it. Outside, headlights passed slow in front of the house. Then stopped. Micah moved to the window, peeking through the blinds. A dark SUV idled near the curb. Windows tinted. No one stepped out. Elijah turned off the tape. They know, he murmured. Somebody knows we're stirring the dust. The SUV didn't move for nearly 5 minutes. Micah and Elijah stood at opposite ends of the darkened living room, the soft red glow of the cassette player light casting long shadows across the floor. Then, without warning, the SUV's headlights blinked off. The engine rumbled softly as the vehicle backed down the street slow, deliberate, unhurried, and disappeared around the bend like it had never been there. Micah exhaled. You recognize the car? No, Elijah replied. But I recognize the silence that follows it. They didn't speak again until the tape was rewound and stored, carefully, in a new envelope labeled Proof TG-96. Elijah handed it to Micah. You keep it, he said. You're the only one who won't get scared halfway through this. Micah hesitated. You really think someone in that church, someone still alive, had a hand in Terrence's disappearance? Elijah's eyes didn't flinch. I know they did. The next morning, MT, Mercy Church basement. Micah made his way into the building before sunrise. The janitor, a quiet woman named Rochelle, who worked the early shift, let him in through the back door with a tired nod. He didn't explain why he was there so early. She didn't ask. He bypassed the sanctuary, the offices, the choir room. Instead, he headed straight to the boiler hallway, a place most folks forgot even existed. There were old storage closets down here, mostly holding rusted communion trays, moth-eaten robes, and decades of forgotten records. But Micah was looking for one thing in particular, the room labeled Archives. He pushed open the warped door. The light overhead flickered before coming on fully. Rows of metal filing cabinets lined the room, and two tall bookshelves sagged under the weight of binders and unlabeled boxes. He stepped inside and shut the door behind him. For the next hour, he flipped through dusty annual reports, tithing ledgers, and board meeting notes. Most of it was boring routine. But in a bottom drawer, labeled Property Acquisition 1995 to 1997, he found a thin file that stopped him cold. Gilmore v. City of Montgomery, 1996, a legal complaint. Terrence Gilmore had filed it 6 weeks before he vanished. Micah opened it and scanned quickly. The filing accused a partnership between the mayor's office and several prominent black churches, including Mount Mercy of backdoor land deals designed to displace low-income black residents for a new commercial complex. Gilmore had named names. The suit never made it to court. The city dismissed it as speculative and unsubstantiated. But here it was, buried in a drawer, in the church itself. In the margin of one of the pages, written in small slanted ink, was a note. PG's tape equals leverage. Hayes said kill the noise before it spreads. Micah stared at it for a long time. Later that day, church kitchen. Sister Lila, head of the church mother's board, stirred collard greens over a steaming stove while humming His Eye is on the Sparrow. Micah approached quietly, folder tucked under his arm. Morning, Pastor, she said without looking up. You here for the cornbread or the confrontation? He smiled faintly. Would it be so wrong to want both? She chuckled, then turned serious. You diggin', baby. I can feel it. Whatever you found, you ready for what comes with it? I don't know, he admitted, but I think it's time somebody was. She turned off the burner. Then you need to talk to Delphine. Micah's brow lifted. Delphine? Terrence's cousin. Used to sing alto. Moved away after he disappeared. Said she couldn't stomach the hypocrisy no more. But she came back 2 years ago. Keeps her head low. Works nights at the nursing home on Carter Drive. She ever talk about it? Not unless you ask directly, Lila said. But she was close to him. Real close. Might know more than she ever said. Micah nodded. Thank you. Lila touched his arm before he left. Be careful, baby. The devil don't always wear red. Sometimes he carries a collection plate. That night, Carter Drive Nursing Home. The facility buzzed softly with fluorescent lights and the occasional call bell. Micah signed in at the front desk and asked for Delphine Gilmore. She was in the break room, sipping coffee from a styrofoam cup, still in her scrubs, earbuds in. She glanced up when he walked in, expression unreadable. I know who you are, she said flatly. That don't mean I want to talk. He stayed by the doorway. I understand. But I'm not here to gossip or stir up old grief. I'm here because the man responsible for what happened to your cousin might still be sitting in our church, wearing a deacon's badge. Delphine's jaw tensed. She took out one earbud. And? Micah stepped closer and opened the envelope, pulling out the program and a photocopy of the marginalia from the church file. This program was found with a gun in the church organ. And this note? Suggests Rev Hayes wasn't working alone when Terrence went missing. Someone helped him silence your cousin. And I think they're still hiding behind choir robes. Delphine stared at the paper. Then quietly, Terrence gave me a backup tape. Said if anything ever happened to him, I was to hold on to it until someone asked the right way. Micah's heart jumped. Do you still have it? I keep it in a safety deposit box under my aunt's name. Figured it was safer that way. She looked at him for the first time with something like trust. You get me protection? I'll give you the tape. Micah nodded. You have my word. Delphine paused. Then come back tomorrow. Midnight. I'll have it. That same night, elsewhere. In a dim garage somewhere on the west side of Montgomery, Deacon Riley slammed down the receiver of a rotary phone. He turned to a man sitting in the shadows, polishing a silver ring on his index finger. They got the program, the damn program with the red marks. And Elijah's talking. The man said nothing. Riley's voice dropped to a snarl. If they get to Delphine, the whole thing unravels. The man leaned forward, eyes cold. Then we make sure they don't. The night Delphine handed over the tape, the rain came down like judgment. Micah sat in his car outside her aunt's house just before midnight, windshield wipers thudding in slow rhythm. The street was empty, save for a flickering porch light and the rattling of wind through half-dead trees. He checked his rearview mirror, again still no headlights. But paranoia had a way of setting its own schedule. The front door opened, and Delphine stepped out with a small lockbox tucked under her arm. No coat, no umbrella. Just soaked blue scrubs and a clenched jaw. Micah rushed to meet her at the bottom of the steps. You sure about this? He asked. I held it for 29 years, she said, eyes hard. I'm tired of watching the liars lead prayer. She placed the lockbox in his hands. Just ... Make it mean something. The next morning, Montgomery Police Department. Detective Latasha Bryce had been working cold cases for 6 years. She'd seen files rot in dust, names forgotten, evidence mysteriously lost. But this one? This had a pulse. Micah sat across from her as she played the tape in a sealed interview room. The voice of Terrence Gilmore crackled through the speaker. This is Terrence Gilmore. If you're hearing this, I didn't make it to Sunday. Reverend Hayes, Deacon Riley, and a Mr. Langston from the City Planning Commission. They moved church funds through a fake shell company to buy land cheap and sell it back to the city for 3 times the price. I got the ledgers. I got the names. I got them saying it out loud on tape. They think I don't know, but I do, and I'm going to tell everybody. No matter what happens to me, this ain't staying buried. Detective Bryce leaned back, slowly. You're telling me this has been locked in a safety deposit box since '96? Micah nodded. We believe Reverend Hayes, who passed in '98, was involved. But Deacon Riley? He's still sitting on the board. Still shaking hands, still wearing a cross on his lapel. Bryce rubbed her temple. And you're sure the woman who handed you the tape is willing to testify? She already wrote her statement, Micah replied, placing the envelope on the desk. She's done being afraid. Later that week, Sunday morning at MT. Mercy, the sanctuary was packed. Choir robes swayed. Pews creaked beneath the weight of anticipation. Everyone had heard something. They didn't know what, but the air buzzed with the tension of secrets about to snap. Micah stepped up to the pulpit not with a Bible in hand, but with the folded court filing. I wasn't called to preach comfort today, he began. I was called to speak truth. He looked toward the choir. Elijah was there, standing tall in his red robe, eyes steady. Micah opened the folder. 29 years ago, this church became entangled in something dark. A man named Terrence Gilmore tried to shine light on it and was silenced. A gasp rippled through the room. I have in my hand evidence his voice, recorded before he disappeared detailing financial crimes involving Reverend Hayes and city officials. And yes, one of our own. Deacon Riley. Gasps turned to murmurs. Heads turned. Riley, sitting in the front row in his gray suit, stood up slowly. This is a disgrace, he barked. That man was a loud-mouthed liar back then, and he's still lying from the grave. You'll have your day to explain, Micah said calmly. In court. You've already been served. Two plainclothes officers entered the sanctuary from the back. "Deacon Riley," one of them said, "we have a warrant." The room erupted. Some cried, others shouted. A few held their heads in stunned silence. Riley stiffened, but didn't resist. He glanced once at Elijah, who simply bowed his head as the man was led away in handcuffs. 2 weeks later, Elijah's front porch. The summer heat pressed down on Montgomery like judgment delayed. Micah sat with Elijah on the porch swing, both sipping sweet tea. "They're reopening the Gilmore case," Micah said. "They may never find the body, but the confession tapes, financial records, and that old program? It's enough." Elijah gave a tired smile. "I wish I'd had your fire back then. Maybe I would have played a different note. You kept the records. You kept the memory. That's not nothing." Elijah nodded. Then he stood and walked inside. When he returned, he held a box. "What's this?" "Old rehearsal tapes. Terrence, the choir, the kids who grew up and moved away. Thought the church might want to make a history wall or something." Micah took the box. We'll remember him right." Elijah smiled, quiet and heavy. "And maybe," he said, "we'll finally play something honest." Epilogue 1 year later. A new plaque hung in the fellowship hall. "In memory of Terrence Gilmore, a voice they tried to silence, a truth that refused to die." The youth choir performed every third Sunday under the name the Gilmore Ensemble. And when they sang, "Soon I will be done with the troubles of the world," the whole church stood, not in mourning, but in justice and joy. This story wasn't just about one case. It was about how quickly truth can vanish when assumptions replace evidence, and how unchecked authority becomes a weapon instead of a shield. It was about fear, how it twists judgment, silences witnesses, and turns policy into harm. But more than anything, it was about dignity and the fight to hold on to it. For every family who never got the apology, for every name that was buried under suspicion instead of cleared by justice, for every child forced to grow up the moment someone else decided they looked guilty. So if this story made you feel something, don't let it end with sympathy. Let it push you to ask harder questions, to challenge what's hidden, and to care before the sirens start. You don't need a badge to speak the truth. You just need to know when silence becomes complicated. If this story spoke to you, like, share, and comment, because conversations lead to awareness. And awareness? That's where justice begins.